And joining me in studio today is a gentleman I just had in the city of Portland. And joining me in studio today is a gentleman I just had a chance to meet. I reached out to him last week because I had a chance to read his website, and I heard him on a few different podcasts. It's like, man, this guy is really sharp, and he can bring background and hopefully dispel a lot of the myths that are out there involving Tom Dundon, the city, and of course the Portland Trailblazers in the ongoing negotiations. It's my pleasure to welcome Edon Kralowitz into the studios here at Rip City Drive. Edon, thanks for coming in, my friend. It's great to see you.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, because I got to be honest with you. Like, I'm trying to follow this story, and I guess what really drives me crazy as a Blazer fan and someone that wants the team here long term is I feel like the public discussion between the Blazers and the city, a lot of it's nonsense. Like, I don't think the truth is really out there, and so I think people hold on to these narratives that don't really help any of us in terms of the ongoing negotiations right now between the team and city.
Yeah, I totally agree. I couldn't agree more.
All right, so let's talk
the
idea for the site. How did you get involved?
Yeah, so I was following, I'm a huge Blazers fan, been
for the site. How did you get involved?
Yeah, so I was following, I'm a huge Blazers fan, been a Blazers fan for almost a decade, watch every game, every regular season game, even summer league games, I'm kind of a sicko. So love the Blazers. So I was following this in February when they were talking about the motor renovation in the Senate. And they were passing that, passing SB 1501 in the short session. And I was looking, and at first I saw they're doing a renovation. I said, sweet, sounds great. Let's do a renovation. And then I was looking at the terms, and I realized there was basically nothing. In the first draft, there was really nothing. And I was like, wait, what are the terms? Like, what are, how are we're handing out $365 million. Like, what are we getting back? And there was really nothing. And so I kind of created the site and just to say, like, hey, we should probably get more information just to figure out what it is that we're doing here. And it kind of took off, and then people started reaching out about it, and I just kind of kept building on it.
What's been the response to the site thus far from the people who have reached out to you?
I think it's, a lot of people have been using the data, which is great, right? That's the whole point, is just to, I try to be fairly neutral about what it is. Obviously, I support the renovation, so I want it to happen. Some people don't want it to happen at all. I'm not in that boat, but I think most people have been pretty receptive just to get details, right? It's been so hard to get any details, right? Which is part of the reason you're describing. Like, the reason there's so much so many emotions is because we don't have enough details, right? I think if there were more concrete details, maybe people would feel slightly less impassioned.
I also like the stance that you're coming from, where you talk about being neutral. You're like me. You want the renovations to take place. We both want the Trailblazers to be here into the foreseeable future. But at the same time, you don't want the state, the city, or the county to just bend over and just hand them a blank check with no terms. Like, that's insane as well. We want it to happen, and both sides need to come together to make it happen. But there's got to be some balance between the city, the state, the county, and, of course, the Trailblazers, right?
Absolutely. I think, Tom Dundon said it best at his initial press conference. He said, look, I'm committed to a market deal, and when we have a market deal, I'll be fully committed to it. I have no reason to believe he was lying. I take everyone at face value unless they prove otherwise. And so I think he was telling the truth. And so now the question is, what is a market deal? And that's kind of what the website was trying to do, is just to say, hey, these are the comps, right? Let's take a look at what the other deals look like. I didn't really have an answer before I did the research, right? I was like, let's go do the research, find out what all these other deals looked like. What is the private contribution that they had? What is the rent that they got? What is the naming rights and all these other things? And then that way we have something to compare it to, right? When this is all over, right, and when we actually have the final terms, we need to be able to score it against something, right? And say, how did we do? How did Portland do compared to all these other cities? So that was the point of the website. And obviously, there are lots of other things that the website then had to, there are other misconceptions that we try to kind of clear up and make clear as things went along. But that was the whole purpose.
All right. Edon and I want to make this as informative as possible today. And we want to answer any of your questions. So let me give you the telephone number, 503-248-0620. 503-248-0620. We welcome any phone calls, any questions, any concerns, anything that you've seen that maybe doesn't make sense, or things that you've seen that you want clarification on. Now is the time. 503-248-0620 is your telephone number. You can also hit us up on social media, or just watch us on YouTube. Just go to youtube.com and pull up our home site, Rip City Radio 620. You can join in on the live stream as well. But that telephone number again, 503-248-0620. So Edon, I wanted to get us up to date based on I would say, a very busy last week in terms of both sides, right? So let's get everyone up to date on what's taken place over the last week. So on Monday, OPB reported that according to city officials, the Portland Trailblazers had failed to share details of the renovation plans for Moda Center. The Blazers say they need the city to commit to the funding before they share the plans. Now on Tuesday, Adam Silver at Summer League down in Las Vegas made this statement right here.
Time with Tom and his partners here in Las Vegas, and what we are most focused on right now, the league office, is the deal that we discussed when we were in Portland in March. I was hoping more progress would have been made by now on that agreement, and it seems to have gone off track in various ways. And so I have a colleague, Joe Masco, who's day-to-day on it, but we're working with both sides to ensure that the Trailblazers can have a long-term future in Portland. But there are several open issues that still need to be resolved.
All right, that response Tuesday from Summer League from Adam Silver, the NBA commissioner, came after a question from Sean Highkin of Rose Garden Report. He was wanting to know that if a deal was struck, would it guarantee the Trailblazers' future in Portland? Following that, Edon, on Wednesday, we had dueling public statements from both the city and the team. Mayor Keith Wilson released a statement that read, quote, "From the start, the city is committed to striking the best deal for Portland. The Blazers are our tenant. We are their landlord. We value them, and we recognize that we need each other for the long term. We are continuing to engage in a community-driven process as we approach a RIP City City Council vote in August. We are operating on an aggressive timeline to reach a new lease, and we have been explicit with the Blazers that design information and clarity around public investment are necessary to move forward. The absence of essential details from the Blazers is slowing progress at a moment when urgency is required. We know that the NBA is committed to Portland, and we look forward to working with them to ensure negotiations on a renovated Moda Center and a long-term lease happen in good faith." The Blazers then responded to Mayor Wilson's statement, saying the suggestion that the Trailblazers are withholding essential information is not accurate. The Trailblazers and the city worked several months in lockstep with the state and county in developing what became SB 1501 and a market rate deal framework. Since that time, we've engaged in multiple discussions of renovation elements, conceptual visions, and building walkthroughs with the mayor and other city officials. The city has more information than state leaders had during the legislative sessions. The Blazers are ready to begin formal negotiations immediately using the framework set for us by SB 1501 and the $365 million already made available for the project. However, the parties must reach an agreement this year. We share the city's sense of urgency. The next step is for the city to bring a term sheet to the table. On Friday, as you know, Edon, the city released their term sheet for everyone to see and sent it over to the Trailblazers. And then yesterday, Jason Quick of The Athletic reported with a couple of team sources who were granted anonymity to speak freely on the project. They said both sides are far from a deal. So that's where we stand today. What was your reaction to the way the news played out last week? And it was very quick in terms of the city speaking, then Adam Silver, and then quickly both sides engaged in public statements, and then we got the term sheet over to the team.
Yeah, I think it was it's funny how whenever Adam Silver speaks, things accelerate, and I think you know what that means, right? The NBA has a lot of sway into how these negotiations play out. I mean, I think a couple of things were interesting in there. Obviously, the fact that the day after, the city kind of came out and said, "Hey, look, we're still waiting on information from the Blazers. Like, we need to see the project details. We need the list of like what are the items that actually need to get renovated." I don't know why the mayor would say he doesn't have that if he already had it. Like, I don't know what he would gain from that, right? Especially as he's been the biggest supporter of this from the very beginning, right? He's been like all engines go. So I don't know why he would say that if he didn't have the details. And the other interesting thing from the Blazers' perspective is, they said, we're waiting on a term sheet from the city, which is, I think, why the city was just like, all right, here you go. You want a term sheet? Here's a term sheet. And then, in Quick's reporting, they're like, I don't know why they sent us a term sheet. It's like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
You asked for a term sheet. They sent you a term sheet, and now you're telling us you don't know why they sent you a term sheet. That was a little strange to me. I'm like, and then, obviously they said in Quick's article that, they felt like the city was talking out of both sides of their mouth or something. And I'm like, well, you asked for a term sheet. They sent you a term sheet, and now you're telling us, nope, we why did you send us a term sheet? Maybe that sounds a little bit more like talking out of both sides of your mouth.
Yeah, it's a lot of finger pointing going on. Do you think that's just the natural rhetoric that takes place in a very
Totally.
public negotiation?
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
This everything that happened so far tracks to what I expected a negotiation to look like.
Exactly. And when I did my research and checked in on how things took place or went down in Raleigh after Tom Dundon had taken over the Hurricanes, it got real contentious there too, right? But he eventually got the deal done. Both sides came to the table and they're able to figure things out. But I do know that there were feelings hurt along the way before they got a deal done. That's normal negotiation, right?
Totally. Yeah. I think, that was my expectation all along, is that, like Tom Dundon, to his credit, he's a smart businessman. He, you don't make billions, being bad at business or bad at negotiations. So, I think he took a very hard stance that we're putting in $0 from the beginning, right? He set his price at 0. I don't think that's a real number. Like, I don't think anyone who sets their price at 0 in a negotiation is telling you that's all I will accept. He's just anchoring at 0, right? And so I think the question now is like, what can the city ask? What's a realistic ask from the city in terms of term sheets that will be defensible, not only to Dundon, but to the NBA, right? Because they're kind of negotiating with two different parties, right? They're negotiating with the NBA to be like, hey, NBA, we're not asking for anything crazy, so make sure this guy doesn't take our team. And they're also negotiating with Tom, like, hey, like, we want to get the best deal for the city, but we know that we have to make something work.
Yeah, so when the city puts out the term sheet, they know that it might not be widely embraced initially, but that's where the process begins, right?
That's right.
Here's our term sheet, and then the Blazers can take a look, they counter, and you go back and forth until eventually you arrive at the point where it's like, okay, this works for both sides.
That's right.
Is that kind of how you see it?
I think so. I think with the way the term sheet is now, right, the term sheet that was sent out, we could talk about that a little bit, but like, it's kind of half of a term sheet if you really look at it, right? So it's there's, if you think about the term sheet as like two components, right? There's the protections, right? Making sure that, the 20-year lease is honored, that there's no clause in which they can kind of like use as an escape hatch, right? They kind of do all that. So I think that the city's negotiating team did a really wonderful job in terms of making sure that they outlined all the protections that are going to be back. The other half of that is the economic angle, which is like money, dollars and cents, right? Like, what's the money that's actually coming back? And even if it's not upfront in terms of like, a private capital contribution, which most other arenas have had, even if it's not that, are we getting rent back, right? Are we getting some revenue streams back so that we can, ultimately pay for this, that go back to the general fund or go back to something that we can use for police or parks or, fire or whatever. So I think I would say the term sheet is kind of like half complete, and it's very visibly in the term sheet, they left out the part that says, we will fill out the rest of this once we get the details from you. So I think it was a very clear negotiating tactic from, not a tactic, but basically it was a very clear message from the city, like, hey, we need to get these details to finalize this term sheet.
All right, telephone number 503-248-0620. Let's go out to the phones. If you've got a question for Idan Kralowitz, he is in the studio. He's going to hang out with me for a while from Rip City Not Rip Off. It's an incredible website, and we're going to dive in and try to give you as much information as possible. Let's go to Aloha. Mike, you're on with Idan Kralowitz. What's on your mind? Fire away.
Thank you. What is exactly they want to renovate? Is it the grounds, views, the luxury boxes, the area around there to include Lloyd Center? And I also heard that if he moved it to Nashville right off the bat, the franchise would be worth $7 to $8 billion instead of the $4 that is currently where it's at now. So what do you think of that?
Go ahead, Idan.
So I'll start with the last part. I definitely don't believe that it would be worth $7 to $8 billion because that's kind of what they're thinking is going to be the expansion. Maybe that's the number that you're hearing is, Seattle and Las Vegas are expected to be somewhere in the range of $7 to $10 billion. The problem with Nashville too is that they don't, they have the Bridgestone Arena there. There's already an operating arena lease there, so Tom Dundon wouldn't be able to assume that lease. So it's not a great thing. Actually, John Hollinger today in The Athletic wrote a piece, and you guys could take a look around how all of these different arenas that people have proposed, Austin, Nashville, Kansas City, they're all in there. And he kind of goes one by one and says, like, this is the reason why this won't work. This is the reason why these won't work. And he basically says, like, look, none of these arenas are going to be better than Portland. They're staying in Portland. You could speculate on why he's saying that right now in this moment at this time. But yeah, I don't think that's the case. What was the other part of his question? Do you remember?
He was wanting to know, let me see here. What was this? We talked about the value there. Which part of the arena is he wanting to renovate? Is it the innards? Is it the outer part? Like, what part of it needs to be renovated?
So I think that's the exact question the city council is asking.
Yeah.
Right.
That's a reasonable ask, right? Like, what are your plans?
Totally.
We're going to give you all this cash. What are your plans for the money?
That's right. And so, the answer that we have right now, we have a partial answer, which is, they did a study back in 2023, 2024 called the VSG study. And when the city basically said, look, we need to renovate this arena, or we need to renovate parts of it over the next 20 years just to keep it kind of first class, to keep it in this good state. And they basically estimated that it would cost somewhere around, the numbers change a little bit, but somewhere between $400 and $500 million over the course of 20 years. Much of that, about 2/3 of that, is going to be revenue generating upgrades. So luxury suites, boxes, team store, other types of things that are, going to generate more revenue if they're fixed. Definitely needed, but again, revenue generating versus things that are structural, which is like replacing a roof or making sure that the elevators work and stuff like that. That's a much smaller number. That's probably closer to like $160 million over the course of 20 years. So there is some numbers there. Thing that the city council is like, hey, if these are revenue generating things, if these are revenue generating things, if these are things that are making you money, I don't think they're necessarily against it. They're just saying we need to split that, right? Like if this is an investment, we need to know what the return on that investment is.
Yeah, and if the investment's going to bring more dollars into your pocket, there should be some sharing of those dollars.
I think that's
fairly reasonable.
Tracks. Yeah.
All right, great. We have Idan Kralowicz in studio. You can check out the website. Just go to ripcitynotripoff.com. If you have phone calls, 503-248-0620.com. Different things we're going to get to, 503-248-0620. You can also go to youtube.com. So we're going to get to 503-248-0620. You can also go to youtube.com and pull up our homepage, Rip City Radio 620. You got the Rip City Drive on your home of the Blazers, Rip City Radio 620. Krolowitz. All right, Rip City Drive on a Monday. Hope you enjoyed your weekend. Edon Krolowitz is in. All right, Rip City Drive on a Monday. Hope you enjoyed your weekend. Edon Krolowitz is in studio. He's the man behind RipCityNotRipoff.com. You got to check out the site. We're going to dive into all the details. If you have any questions in regards to the negotiations, the arena deal, anything that's on your mind that maybe you don't understand, 503-248-0620 is your telephone number. And Edon telling me some very interesting family facts. So you were born in Israel, which is awesome. And then all of a sudden you get Deni Avdia brought to the team in a trade. Like he's the greatest Israeli basketball player of all time. So like you hit the jackpot. You're a big Blazer fan, and all of a sudden they get your hometown guy on the team. You must have been like, what's going on here?
It was the best. It was the absolute best. I don't think I could have been happier. All of my family was hitting me up being like, isn't that where you live? Well, like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
So it was sick.
Yeah, it's great. I love him, and I love his attitude, his approach, and, you know, he loves playing and representing the Jewish people. And I asked him during camp last year, he's like, I love contact. Like, he likes the physical brand of basketball, which he shows out every night, but it's really been refreshing to watch him. You also went to MIT. That's pretty impressive. What was that experience like?
It was cool. It was, a lot of smart folks, a lot of really talented people, very intense, but also super fun.
What are the majority of students that go to MIT? What are they looking to pursue post graduation?
I think it's probably like a third engineering, a third kind of finance, kind of that kind of thing, finance consulting. And then I don't know what the other third would be, kind of like a whole mix of things, but yeah.
So are there a lot of MIT guys on Wall Street?
Yeah, a lot of hedge funds, stuff like that. Yeah. A lot of obviously like, engineering companies, like Meta and Google and all that kind of stuff. What you'd expect.
What made you choose the Northwest?
So I actually came to work at Microsoft in Seattle right out of college.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And then
I had a couple of friends I graduated with, went straight to Microsoft after college.
Yeah, I mean, it was cool. It was probably a cooler time when your friends went there.
Yeah.
it was probably a smaller feel, but no, Microsoft was cool. Had a good time, and then was in Seattle for a couple of years. And then I realized, I came down to Portland because I was just like, actually, what I wanted was Portland, not Seattle.
Yeah.
And then I came down here. Went to the library one day, found Breaks of the Game at the library
sweet.
By David Halberstam, best sports book of all time, period. And it just so happens to be about the Blazers. So if you haven't read it, go pick it up. But yeah, instantly became like a diehard Blazers fan, and I don't think I've missed a game since that moment.
Yeah, and I can see that in your care and why you'd put the website together to help people understand. Like, and I've talked about this, and I've talked to people who cover teams in different markets. Like the relationship between team and community here in Portland is different than anywhere else in the NBA.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, again, I was living in Brooklyn for a couple of years, and you go to games there sometimes, and you can hear a pin drop.
Yeah,
like the Moda Center is the best arena. Period. I mean, I went to a Toronto Raptors game, and that was cool. But again, nothing like the Moda Center. The Moda Center is like a super special place.
Well, it's great to have you in. All right, let's dive into something that's very important. And again, we just want to be informative And Edon is on top of all this, so we want to paint the picture for how things are, what this negotiation really is about. But this is one of the most important aspects, Edon, that you've been talking about. It's one building, but it's two different contracts. Expand on that.
Yeah, so if you look in the term sheet right now, we're actually negotiating with two different entities. One is called Trailblazers, Inc., and that's the team, right? That's the Trailblazers, and they make their money from, not just like the tickets and concessions at the Moda Center, but they make like $230 million a year from TV rights and just like all the other NBA teams. So that business is in and of itself. That's the Trailblazers. When we think of the Trailblazers, it's Trailblazers, Inc. Then there's Rip City Management, which is the arena operator. And so the arena operator operates the entire arena, and that includes like the fire, right? That includes all the concerts, like monster truck rallies, all this stuff. So the arena operator, all the revenues go up into the arena operator, and they're the ones who make all the revenues. And then the arena operator has a lease with the owner of the building, and they have to decide, what revenues go from the arena operator to the building owner.
Okay, so how did this change? So when Paul Allen, constructed the Rose Garden, which became Moda Center, he was all three, right?
That's right. That's exactly right. So he was the owner of the arena. He was Rip City Management, which was his firm, was the arena operator. And then he also was the anchor tenant in Trailblazers, Inc. And so right now what happened was when the city bought it for $1, we took one of those 1/3 of that, which is the arena itself, but the other 2/3 still belong to Paul Allen or Jody Allen at the time, and that's what she sold when she sold it for $4.25 billion. Presumably, she sold both of those entities together, right, for that $4.25 billion. And so that's what Dundon owns now. He owns the arena operating contract until 2030 when the lease ends, and then he also owns Trailblazers Inc., which is the team.
So can we assume that in these negotiations, I would guess, based on how you just described the money flow, that the Blazers would want to continue being the building operator, correct?
Oh yeah, I mean, anytime you can make revenues on a basically a monopoly, right? That in Portland, like there's just one Moda Center, right? And so anytime you can make all those revenues and all those concert revenues and everything else, I mean, you definitely there's a lot of other companies who would be interested in getting that kind of contract.
All right. So how should the city approach those negotiations when it comes to determining who the building operator is going to be?
So right now, what we're doing is we're sole sourcing it, meaning we're only pitching it to Tom. We're saying like, look, you're the current operator, and so we're trying to figure out a lease with you to continue to do it, right? Beyond 2030. They don't need to do that. In fact, in 2004 to 2007, this same arena, right? There was a Rose Garden at the time, was actually managed by not Rip City Management. It was managed by Global Spectrum or something like that, which is an arena operator, like a national arena operator. So there's a price for basically like an arena like that could make something like $100 million a year, roughly, something like that. So obviously it's a good chunk of change. People want the right to be able to do that. What's interesting is in Seattle, right, with Climate Pledge Arena that they created, that's a city-owned arena just like ours, right? So same circumstance, city-owned here, city-owned there. A company called OVG, Oakview Group, they're an arena operator, and they basically said, we're going to get the lease with the city, but we're going to pay the 100% of a $1.2 billion renovation. So the public paid nothing, right? They financed it completely, this private group, for the rights to basically, maintain this lease for something like 40 years, something like 38 years. They signed like a super long lease. And so that's great for Seattle and the taxpayers there because they didn't have to pay anything.
Yeah. Right?
And so the question here is like, why are we sole sourcing this part of the deal, right? The Trailblazers can stay the tenant no matter what, right?
Yeah.
Whether Tom Dundon, let's imagine we did this and we had a competitive bid and Tom Dundon were to lose the bid. They can still stay as the anchor tenant here and make all their money and sign a lease with whoever wins, right? There's no reason why they need to leave. They could stay an anchor tenant forever, and they wouldn't have to manage the arena. I think in the best case, what the city could do is we can say, hey, let's just go put it out to a bid, find out what other people would be willing to pay for it, and then go to Tom and be like, hey, we'll give you even, we'll if you could sweeten the deal somehow, like we ideally want you, Tom, to do it, but you got to meet us somewhere closer to what the market rate actually is. And the only way to know the market rate is to put it out to a bid.
Yeah, that would make sense. That's just good business, right? You go out, you talk to different management groups that could run the arena, they give you a bid, and then you can know the numbers you're dealing with when it comes to Tom Dundon and his group running and managing the arena.
Yeah, I mean, like if you were to get a deck in your backyard, right, and you were like, hey, I'm going to get one quote, and I'm only going to get one quote, right? Well, then you're only going to have one price, Of
course.
Like you'd be like, yeah, why don't I get 3 or 4 quotes and compare them, and then figure out what's the best quote, right? Right now, we're just saying we're only going to get one quote from Tom, and of course, he's incentivized to give us the lowest possible price because he knows we're not going to anyone else, right, to ask them for a quote. So I think the only way to truly get the market rate, right? He said he wants to do a market rate deal. Right now, it seems like the Trailblazers in the city are not talking for one, regardless of whose fault it is, right? They're not talking. So the only thing that the city council can do is say, well, let's go get some more quotes just to see what other people would pay, right? Maybe they would contribute hundreds of millions of dollars in private capital. Maybe they would pay 4 times I don't know, right? I'm genuinely not sure. But until we actually know what the market would pay, we're not going to know what a market deal is.
Yeah, because the idea that you cannot own the building, be the main tenant, be the arena operator, and yet not pay rent or share in any of the revenues that are coming in because of the building that you're running, like that doesn't make any sense in my mind.
Yeah, that's pretty wild. I mean, another example I give is like, a lot of people say, look, this is the city's arena, so they need to pay for 100% of it. So obviously that's not true. I just gave the Seattle example, and there are several other examples. The thing that's actually true with these arena deals is whoever keeps all the revenue pays for it, right? So Golden State, they paid for 100% of the arena. Makes sense. They kept 100% of the revenues, right? Paul Allen paid for 100% of the arena. kept 100% of the revenues, right? It's true for the Clippers, right? Steve Ballmer, same situation. So whoever keeps the revenues is who pays for the renovation, right? But if you're in our situation, we're keeping none of the revenues and paying 100% of this renovation. That's completely backwards.
Why did it make sense at the time for the city to purchase back the Moda Center for $1 from Paul Allen?
So it's actually my understanding that in the 1995 lease, the original lease, it was always stipulated that the arena would basically go to the city. So I think it was going to happen either way in 2025. I think they just did it a year earlier. I don't think that lease was great. I think a lot of people in the city are pretty upset that we signed that. I think, I don't know how that all went down, but I think a lot of people are pretty upset that we got kind of left holding the bag on that.
Yeah, it kind of feels like maybe Paul Allen, you look at the situation, you know the headaches that are going to come in the future from a building like that that's that old. Why not sell it for $1 and just get it off your hands?
I think that's definitely what happened. I mean, in this case, it was Jody who kind of, managed it with interestingly enough, is a kind of fun tidbit, is the person that was helping Jody with that negotiation was a guy named Dan Barrett, who actually negotiated against Tom Dundon in Raleigh. So similar guy there that they both knew pretty well.
Have you learned anything from that process in Raleigh with Tom Dundon?
I think the main thing I learned is, like, if you ask him for stuff, he'll sign it. I mean, he signed, I think it's like $4.5 million in rent, which is more than we're even asking now for. And he had a renovation that was half the price, right? That was a $300 million renovation that he's paying $4.5 million in rent on. We're not even asking him for that, right? We're asking him for like 50% less than that. And not 50%, math, MIT. I'm not good at math. We're asking for $3 million, and he, he's paying $4.5 million in rent. So, I mean, if the city never asks the terms, right? If they never ask for anything back, well, of course, Dom Dundon is going to be like, I'm not gonna volunteer money, like I'm gonna sit back and just wait,
Well, I think that's a very good point, that he is by all accounts, and if you talk to people who were a part of that deal in Raleigh, he is ruthless when it comes to negotiation. That's a strength of his, but not unreasonable to the point where he knows what a good deal is and what is a ridiculous deal. He's not a fool, right? So he
totally.
But at the same time, any good negotiator is only going to give whatever you ask him to give.
100%, and he will never ever give you a penny more than he feels like he has to.
Well, one thing that you brought up, I asked you about during the break, that's important because a lot of people don't know this, but you said the city has actually gone out. They have hired representation, so they have outside help that's assisting them in this process. Yeah,
that's right. I think, I spoke to some folks in the city, and they have two law firms that are helping them, one local, one national, and they also have a guy named Carl Hirsch, who is from Stafford Sports, who worked on several deals. One of them was actually an Islanders deal back from Long Island, where I'm from, and again, where it was like, and he also worked in Seattle and in some other places. So yeah, Carl Hirsch is, seasoned vet, knows what he's doing. And hopefully he can get us, the best deal here.
All right. 503-248-0620 is your telephone number. You can jump on board. We keep things cruising here. Idan Kralowitz is in studio, and all we want is they're ongoing between the Trailblazers and the city. And all we want is a solution between the Trailblazers and the city. And all we want is a solution. Let's get this deal done, and then we can focus on basketball. I would rather focus on how the Blazers are going to manage the offense with 5 guards than I would talk about this deal. How about that, too?
Oh, man.
5 guards and Denny, who handles the ball as much as a guard does.
Everyone's getting the ball. We're just going to pass the ball a lot, I guess.
Who's got the tougher job, like the city in the negotiations or the head coach trying to figure out how to work the offense with 5 guards?
I think Mike Inori is pretty good. Yeah, he's a smart dude. I think he, from what he's done with the Wolves and stuff, I
thought he won the press conference when he got here. What'd you think about Nori?
He crushed. I couldn't be more excited about having him, man. He seems awesome.
Gosh, everyone that talks about him, the relationships he's created, but everyone praises him. Like, I'm excited to see him work. What a likable guy he is.
Super likable.
All right, Idan Kralowitz is in studio. You got the Rip City Drive here on your home of the Blazers, Rip City Radio 620. All right, Rip City Drive, Don Krolowitz is in studio. All right, so maybe you can walk us through this for everyone. What exactly does a fair deal look like in your mind? What is a fair deal?
So I think it's, I think the data is the best way to look at it, right? So what we try to do on the site, and anyone can go take a look at this if you go to ripcitynotripoff.com/deals, or you just go to the menu and go to the deals analysis. Basically what we did was we mapped out, and we have graphs and other things that we can show you, just what the returns are for every revenue stream from every arena deal, right? So like, what did the Spurs get in terms of private contribution and rent and revenue share and, all those naming rights and all those different things. And so what we did was we kind of tallied all that up to say the total of that is the total return that the public gets, right? So we'll say like, let's say it's $1 billion deal. How much of that is public money going in? How much of that is private money going in terms of percentage? And then how much of a return is the public getting back in terms of a percentage? So we're not looking at one specific line item, but we're taking all of them and adding them together and saying, okay, what's the total percentage we're getting back? And so in terms of private contribution, in terms of cash to put in, it seems like the majority of the deals are somewhere between 18%, which is like the Indiana Pacers, to like 62%, which is the Cleveland Cavaliers. The private organization put in 62% of that renovation. And that's specifically comparing, again, like publicly owned renovated arenas, so very much apples to apples, not comparing us to the Clippers, which is a very different thing where it's privately owned and privately financed and all that stuff. So in terms of that, I would imagine somewhere between that 18 to 62% range is cool for me, right? Like I'm not here to set the number, but I think somewhere in that range is acceptable, right? Is an acceptable number.
And Tom Dundon understands that too, right?
Of course, he knows this, and he's basically anchoring at I think he mentioned Utah and he mentioned Salt Lake City in most recently, or not he, but the Trailblazers folks. And they also mentioned OKC. So OKC is the worst arena deal that's ever happened until now, basically. And even they got $50 million contribution, plus like rent on games and stuff. So, and then in Salt Lake City, the ownership basically promised to do I think it was $3 or $4 billion in development around the arena. So I think if Tom said, "Hey, I'm developing, I'm going to put in $4 billion into renovating the Albina district and the district around that," I think that would change a lot of people's perspectives on whether this is a good deal or not.
Yeah.
So far, he has not made any indication that he's interested in doing any development, like he did, like he's doing in Raleigh. I think he's doing $800 million in Raleigh. But I certainly think that would change the way people perceive the project if, again, people think that he's investing in the surrounding area.
Well, one thing I have heard, and I was sworn to secrecy, so I can't give up any of the names or the details, but I do know that there are people, long before he was confirmed as owner, he's already been talking with people in the business sector locally in different ways that they can go about transforming that Rose Quarter area and building up the area around it. And some of the ideas I heard, I think, are really, really good in terms of making that a destination spot. And maybe that's the next step for him after he gets the negotiating done here. Then he can turn his sights to that, because I think real estate and development's kind of his bread and butter, right?
I think so. I mean, I think that's why the Raleigh deal was $800 million of development. It was primarily what you called a development deal, where a lot of the money is going into development. And I think in Raleigh, I think it's just like a parking lot, right? There's not much around there. And so they were just like, this would be great if it was renovated. I think for us, one thing I'll say is the Moda Center is located in a really prime part of town, right? It's
centrally located,
super centrally located. Those development rights are worth a whole lot of money. So kind of like I was saying about the competitive bid for the arena operator, I think from a fiscal perspective, I think it would be wise to be like, hey man, that's worth a lot of money too. And so, maybe we can competitively bid that too and say, look, that land is worth a lot. If you want to do it, great. But if you're not going to commit to do it, we need to find people who might be.
Well, that's a great idea, because then let's face it, if Dundon's involved in the development, that's a way for him to make a chunk of change, but also it could be a great revenue stream for, the city, right?
Absolutely.
Get money back in their coffers.
Absolutely.
I'm excited about that, because the one, downside ever since Rose Garden was put into place back in '95 is that they've tried to find a way to make it a destination point, but it's just never really come to fruition, right? And it's one of those spots similar to what we had in, the Oakland area with the Coliseum, where you've got the MAX lines that run right up to it, so it's easy access. the freeway and the car system's not the best, but it's still centrally located and easy for people to get to with mass transit. So if it's done right and you have other options there outside of just an arena to hold events, it could turn out to be pretty sharp. And you've got great real estate right in front of the river. It could be a beautiful area too.
I was walking around there a week or two ago just to be like, taking in all the sights, and it could be amazing. I mean, it could really be amazing. And I'm on the Rip City Reddit thread, and I was asking people like, would you guys actually hang out there? And it was overwhelmingly like, heck yeah. Like I would totally be there and hang out and spend money. So it sounds like people would be super excited about actually doing it if it happened.
Yeah, I think you're right. If it's the right stuff, if you got things to pursue outside of, like the way I envision it is like if you go there on a night where there's no game, there's no concert, but you've got different, things in terms of maybe food or beverage or maybe some other type of entertainment outlet. If there's something there for people to show up, they'll do it, right? And the one thing I like about Portland is that if you provide an area for people to gather and have that community feel, we like that kind of stuff here, especially right now when the weather's really nice outside.
Absolutely. I mean, Portland's great at consumption, right? We're built for that. No sales tax, no nothing, right? It's like if you want to build cool, weird, creative stuff around there, people will show up, I think.
One of my favorite things is when I have people that come and visit and they're purchasing stuff, they're like, the idea of no sales tax, what do you mean
the price
there's no
is
tax?
the price?
Yeah, the price is the price. They love it, right? So I went in to get, brake work done on my car last week, and I was quoted the price, and I did it over in Vancouver, and then when they give me the bill, it's like a lot more than what they had quoted me. I was like, wait, this is not what I was quoted. Here's the price I was quoted. They're like, oh, tax. And I'm like, gosh, dang it. 8.9% right down the drain right there. But not in Portland.
Not in Portland, man. Try buying stuff in New York City, man.
That's great.
That's rough.
All right, Yidon, what I want to do when we come back, and you've done this before, but I think this is important. How about we dispel some of the myths that are out there that I think driving some of the fear in the discussions that I'm hearing from people all over the place. And you probably get hit up all the time by friends or people too, right?
Yep.
You get a lot of concerns or...
Absolutely. Yeah, we can definitely dive into that.
Dundon just wants to move the team. You hear it all.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to break it down. We'll dispel some myths. If you got any questions, 503-248-0620. Yidon Kralowitz, ripcitynotripoff.com is the website. You can check it out. He's done a great job of laying out the information so you can be better informed when it comes to the negotiations between the team and the city. You got the Rip City Drive. All right, Rip City Drive. Hope you're enjoying your Monday. I'm very fortunate to have Edan Krolowitz in studio today. He's the man behind RipCityNotRipoff.com, which is a terrific website. And I just wanted to try and bring the temperature down on the conversation. And I understand why the emotions are higher, right? Because this is a team that's been a part of the community for, since before I was born, right? And the connection that we've talked about between the team and the city is really special. And the idea of the team potentially moving or just even thinking about it, like, it's such a bad thought that I don't even like to go there, right? I can't imagine Portland without the Trailblazers. That's insane.
Yeah. Me neither. That would be absolutely devastating.
All right, let's walk through some of the most common myths. And I think this is one of the most important parts of the show that we do together today. And feel free to take this in any direction you want, Edan. But let's start with this, because I'm getting this one a lot, that Tom Dundon bought the team just so he could move the Trailblazers to a different city.
So I think there's a bunch of reasons why. First, I like to take everyone at their word. I like to give everyone the benefit of the doubt. And I think if someone tells you that they're not interested in moving the team, I mean, he kind of foreshadowed this in his first press conference. He basically said, like, look, when I was in Raleigh, everyone said I was moving the team. I never once thought about it. I never gave it any thought. I was just negotiating hard. And, when it was all over, here we are. And now we want to stay on the cup, right? So I think I never like to jump to conclusions. I think obviously the threat of relocation is a large leverage point. So I think he's obviously never going to say it out loud, and I think it would be naive to think that he would come out and
But that's an important note, because a lot of people don't understand this. Like, they want to have the owner just come out and say, hey, Portland, I love you, and I understand the connection between the team and the community. I would never move them. That would not serve him at all right now, right?
It's his only leverage point. Right. I don't know if there's any other leverage that he has. Right. Like, so if you're in a negotiation and your only leverage point is that threat, even unspoken threat, well, of course you're not going to get rid of it immediately.
No. And of course, his main focus is to get the best deal for himself and the team.
That's right.
Just like the city council should be focused on getting the best deal for the city possible.
100%. So I think, the threat exists. It's not zero. It's not like, it's never zero. But I think there's a lot of just factual things that make it less likely to happen. One is the things that have been reported in the last couple of days, right? Which is like John Hollinger reporting today that there are basically he went arena by arena and saying there's none of these places that people have been talking about are places. And he mentioned that there's NBA insiders that he's talking to, right? He was a front office exec. There are a lot of people inside the NBA who are like, there's nowhere for him to go. That's one. The second thing is obviously the Seattle expansion thing, which he also talks about, which is, they're already moving to Seattle and Las Vegas. As you're an NBA insider. People have been talking about this for years and years and years.
Yeah.
Like, it's basically a done deal. They just need to kind of get this thing done so that they can move on to pricing the expansion. And so that's another reason why it's like no one's going to give up. These owners aren't going to give up a $600 million payday each just to placate Tom because he doesn't want to pay $150 million or whatever. It's whatever the city's asking for. So I think there's that reason and then I think like there's also just like the history of we're a larger metro, right? Adam Silver came here and said Portland's not a small town. A lot of people are like, Portland's too small of a town. He's gonna move into a bigger town. Well, there aren't any larger metros to go to, right? Like a lot of them have teams already, and the other ones are there's territorial rights issues with why they can't go there. So I think all of those facts point to the fact that the Blazers are staying, not to mention the fact that we have a 50 plus year history and like Blazers fan, like this whole community, this whole city is built around the Blazers. You go and you see graffiti everywhere. That's like, murals and like, we're built around the Blazers. I don't see the NBA taking that kind of hit in terms of its own kind of character and how people perceive the NBA. I don't think that they would allow Portland to leave.
Yeah. And I would add to that usually if you're looking to move a franchise, you're not going to take a location like Portland that has been a wildly successful franchise for decades, right?
Yeah,
I think that's
absolutely.
important to note. And I do think that geographically, that Commissioner Silver, like they want a team in Seattle. I think they want a team in Portland because they want that, rivalry, but plus for scheduling and so forth, I think it makes a lot of sense.
Yep.
And again, Adam Silver would never say this, but I've heard now for the last 2 to 3 years that their desire is to have a team here and a team in Seattle. So you've got a Northwest rivalry between the two. And so but he's not going to say it right now because he's supporting Dundon in his efforts to get a deal done.
He works for the owners, right? Like
Yeah.
he ultimately, like, you know, if they don't like what he's doing, he gets fired, right? So his job is to support the owners. And I think, you know, Adam Silver, a lot of people don't like Adam Silver. I think he's brilliant. I think he's brought in unbelievable amount of money to the NBA. I think he's done a ton of great things. There's certain things about the game that I don't like, and we can quibble over that. But from a financial perspective, he's done a great job. And he's very careful with his words.
Yes.
In a way where he protects the owners and protects the city.
He's amazing.
Really brilliant guy. And so I think if you actually listen to what he says, and when he came here and Brooke Olzendam, you know, did the interview with him, he was very clear that, like, we want Portland. We're staying here. We're committed to Portland, and we need to get this deal done, and we need to get, you know, the funding passed and all this stuff. So I think ultimately, again, I'm not super concerned that whether this deal's gonna happen or not. I think it will happen. I think it's just on what terms is it gonna happen, and
Yeah.
I think we need to. That's the problem we need to solve.
No question. What about the idea that the city owns the building, therefore they should be responsible for all the costs and renovation?
I think we kind of talked about it, right? It's like there is no arena deal, right, in that has happened that I know of where the person who makes all the revenues is not contributing. That just doesn't exist, right? So in the cases where it's completely privately funded, again, Golden State Warriors, the Clippers, all those places, when the arena is completely privately funded, they make all the revenues. In Orlando, it's a good example, right? The city owns the arena. They make all the revenues, right? Because they're the arena operator. And so because they're the arena operator, they funded the building. Well, it makes sense, right? If you get all the revenues, you fund the building, right? So this principle holds regardless of whether it's privately owned or it's city owned. And the principle is whoever makes the revenues pays for the renovation, right? So that's the only way you should think about these arena renovations things. It has nothing really to do with who owns the arena. It's who makes the revenues. And the person who makes the revenues, or the entity that makes the revenues, does the renovation.
All right. What about this narrative that's really kind of driven the entire conversation that it's just another billionaire looking for a public handout?
I think it is a billionaire.
Yeah.
He is a billionaire, but I think he's looking. I mean, he told us straight up what he's going to do. He's like, I'm going to get the best deal for me, and the city should get the best deal for them, and let's play ball, right? Like, let's.
I don't think he
negotiate.
was lying. I think that was
No, I think he was
legit exactly
genuine.
what he was thinking.
I think he does not strike me as a person who lies. I think he tells you exactly what it is, and he drives a hard bargain, and then, you know, wherever the cards fall, he's going to commit to that, and then he's going to move on, right? And then we're all going to be talking basketball and not talking about this.
Same thing as when he went to the chamber meeting at Moda Center, where he's
Yeah.
like, "Hey, I think purchasing a team and spending $4.25 billion is skin in the game."
Yeah.
I don't think he was lying about that.
I don't think he was lying. I think he was certainly negotiating publicly.
Yeah.
But and I have some quibbles with the thing he said about the ticket fee, which is we can go into that. It's kind of a weird detail, but I think he believes that. I think ultimately he believes that, like, he already got commitments from all the people. I mean, the Blazers said as much, right? They basically said, like, look, we believed we had a deal back in March that was like a done deal where you guys were giving us all this money. Obviously, the mayor does not have the authority to, to determine what the city council ultimately is going to do. And it's the city council's job to pass budgets, to do the legislative financial stuff, right? That's literally their job. So they're the ones who have to look at the documents and make those decisions. But I do think Dundon thinks that he thought maybe politically that he had secured what he needed. But the reality is, he didn't actually talk to the entity, which is the city council that makes those decisions. And if the city council had told him that would be maybe a different thing. But
Well, you had brought this up. This is interesting. We haven't brought this up yet on the show, but we were talking about beforehand where in the short session in the state legislature, they were quick to just say, hey, here's the blank check. You got the approval for the $365 million. And then they kind of passed the buck onto the city and the council to come up with the terms, right?
Yeah. So in the very first, proposal that the Senate had, I think there were like no terms. There were basically, I don't even think it included the 20-year lease. Maybe it did, but there were no like clawbacks, nothing. And that's the thing that kind of like got, my eyebrows raised. And then, they basically included like some stipulations. I don't want to say it's completely empty, but it was pretty raw. Like there was an expectation that the lease that the city council is in charge is responsible for, this lease with the city, is going to be where all the protections will be put in. And that was explicitly said by the legislators. Like that, that's where that fight happens. We need to put in this 365 because we need to show the NBA that we're serious about, being in good faith. And I think that's right. Like, I think the good, I have issues with how that went down, but the good thing that came out of it was we showed the NBA, like, look, we're serious partners.
Yeah.
Here's 365 million. It's more than half of the project that they're even asking for. And like, we're serious partners. This is on the table. And that's a good thing that came out of it. The problem is, to your point, they put all the hard work on the city.
Yeah.
And that work needs to get done either way, right? At least needs to happen. And the city is now doing what I think they're doing their job, which is asking questions like, what is this for,
Yeah.
right? And what is this about? And I think they're doing their job.
Yeah, which is a reasonable thing to do when you're giving up that type of public money. And it's a lot of dollars that we're talking about. I've had a lot of friends approach me and say, what's wrong with the Moda Center? It doesn't need to be renovated. They can just play in the building. I've been there. I've seen a lot of games there. It seems fine to me. What's your take on that?
I mean, I think, again, I was in Toronto not long ago, and their arena looks way worse than the Moda Center. I mean, I don't know.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know if you've been there, but
I have
mean,
not.
that looks like an old arena. That looks like you're stepping into an old place. The Moda Center does not look like an old arena. And Barclays is a new arena that I used to go to all the time. But it's like it's not as good. Like I think sometimes people don't realize, like, a lot of these newer arenas, you're far away. Like you're they're making big, but you're far away. And if you're getting nosebleed seats, you're really in the nosebleeds. I mean,
That's a good point. Moda Center, you're right on top of the action.
You're right there. You're right there. And it's a pretty big arena, right? It's not small. So, I mean, I think it's good. Now, again, like, I think there's obviously money to maintain it and make it better, and we should do that. And again, some people are just like, we should only do it if it absolutely needs renovation. I don't think that. I'd be down to invest, like if they were like, hey, this is $1 billion, $2 billion project, I wouldn't just say no outright. I'd be like, cool, $2 billion. What are we getting back? Right? I'd be asking the exact same question I'm asking now, which is like, if we're making an investment, what's the return on the investment? It doesn't matter what the price tag is.
Yeah,
right? Just
it's
tell
about
us
the return.
So tell us what the return is. Yeah.
What are some of the other big myths for you?
I think the biggest myth of all of this is that, like, this is like Seattle. This is the thing I always hear, right? This is just like Seattle.
And if you talk to people, and I know people in the media in Seattle, they'll tell you that Tom Dundon's using the Clay Bennett playbook.
The Clay Bennett playbook is something I hear all the time. So let's dispel this myth once and for all.
Yes,
John.
please do.
Let's do this once and
I
for
hear
all.
this every day.
It couldn't be more wrong, and this is why. In Seattle in 2006, so before the Sonics left, there was a law called I-91 that was passed in Seattle, and that law said you cannot give any subsidies at all, period. You cannot give anything. So when Clay Bennett went and asked the state legislature in Washington for money, they said, you get zero, goose egg. You get nothing. And Clay Bennett basically went to the NBA and said, hey, they're giving me nothing. And so the NBA said, I don't know if they said this, but I'm speculating. The NBA was like, well, we can't set a precedent where cities can give nothing, right? We need them to give something. And so that was the reason why I think David Stern allowed them ultimately to leave, is because this public, city, state, whatever, they came back with nothing. We're giving you nothing. You got to do it yourself. Our situation is completely the opposite, right? They came and asked for money. We literally handed them the money with like no questions asked, right? Instantly, like in 3 weeks, like as fast as you could possibly do it, we gave them the money, more than half of the project. So it is completely opposite from, it could not be more opposite than Seattle, just like from the money, which is the thing that matters at the end of the day, right? The money is what matters. It's not feelings. It's not vibes, right?
Yeah.
We got $365 million that we said we are in. And so it's nothing like Seattle. The NBA is not going to look at that and say that's the same as Seattle. It's completely different. And so that whole, like, this is the Clay Bennett playbook, it's not true, because the Clay Bennett playbook included the fact that he got $0 from the state.
How much of that do you think is, one, people who just have a certain distaste for billionaires, but also I feel like Blazer fans, for as long as I can remember, have always had this built-in fear that the team was going to move to Seattle, right? that Paul Allen, because of his connection to Microsoft and the people in Seattle, that somehow, some way, at some point, the team was going to move, like almost a self-fulfilling prophecy.
I think Blazers fans have two fears, which are knees and people leaving. I think those are the two fears that Blazers fans have.
Knees are probably number one.
Knees are number one, and the Blazers possibly leaving are number two. So I understand both of them, but
that was confirmed when I had a caller reach out and say, if the Blazers get the number one pick, they cannot draft Wemby. I'm like, what are you talking about? He goes, dude. He goes, if they draft Wemby, his knee's going to go sideways. And I'm like, okay, valid point.
That's a concern, man.
Yeah.
It's a concern. I mean, to be fair, he's a lot thinner than Greg Oden was, but
that's true. Interesting. Yeah. So that's a big one. But if you talk to people in Seattle, that's exactly what they're doing. I think a lot of people who are talking about this too, especially the people from Seattle, they like to crack on us anyway. So they're trying to build up any type of animosity or fear between the two cities that they can, because they're still upset they lost their team in the Sonics.
Yeah, and also, by the way, Adam Silver has repeatedly gone on the record and said that was a mistake. Like, that was absolutely a mistake, and like that's not something they're trying to replicate. And it's the reason why in Sacramento, right? So Sacramento, they were potentially going to go up to Seattle in 2013, right? So they were potentially going to move the team from Sacramento to Seattle. And Paul Allen actually voted. He was one of the people voting yes, because I think he wanted Seattle to go back up there, the Seattle to have a team. But again, the voters, the board of governors, which are the owners, voted against it 22-8. So overwhelmingly against relocation. And that wasn't even when expansion was on the table. Right now we have these two expansion teams on the table. So the relocation threat is literally the lowest I think it's ever been. Like there's nowhere to go. There's expansion revenue that's coming to every single owner, right? And the NBA has explicitly said over and over and over again, we are not moving from Portland.
So you're in the same boat I am. There's no doubt in my mind that both Las Vegas and Seattle will get teams.
Absolutely. I mean, he was Adam Silver was effusive in his praise for Las Vegas and how they've been handling stuff. I mean, he was like,
and he's really good. Adam Silver is great at, like you said, he's very careful with his words, but normally whatever he wants, he gets. He finds a way to get it done, and especially things that he deems to be important. Like for him, I think he believes expansion to both of those cities is critical for, the future growth of the NBA. Some people would disagree with that, but I think in his mind, he thinks it's critical for them to be able to expand to those two spots.
I agree with him. I think those are two cities that are critical.
And they do have an arena that's ready, made for hoop in Seattle right now.
That's right.
That's pretty exciting. All right. I want to talk some more with you. You got time?
Yeah.
Can I hold you? I appreciate you, man.
Of course.
Edan Krolowitz is in studio. If you want to jump on board, 503-248-0620. So just Edan. So don't forget that, all right? All right, 503-248-0620 is your telephone number. Edan Krolowitz. Don't forget that, all right? All right, 503-248-0620 is your telephone number. Edan Krolowitz, ripcitynotripoff.com is the website. You got the Rip City Drive. Edon was negotiations here in just a moment. So when I came out here, as I mentioned, I knew Clyde Drexler was in town here in just a moment. So when I came out here, as I mentioned, I knew Clyde Drexler was in town. So I was pretty excited about that. But I really started to fall in love with the team. I had a job during the summertime with my buddy Jason. This one I was about 14, almost 15 years old at PIR, Portland International Raceway, right over there in Delta Park. And on Wednesday nights, we would go down there and work for a few hours. They had open track night where you could rip your car around the track, and it would print off a time slip that we would tear off and hand to the drivers. And so one night we're there working, and I look up and we see this very tall black individual walking down the hill towards the track. And I was like, Jason, I think that's Jerome Kersey. He's like, nah, dude, no way. And he got closer. He goes, you're right, that's Jerome. So I ripped off a piece of yellow legal notepad, and I ran over to him, and he signed it for me. I've still got the autograph to this day, but he was the first trailblazer I met in public. And the cool thing about back then is that as time went on, I would run into him in downtown. I saw Clyde Drexler having dinner with his family on the boardwalk down there in downtown. And Kevin Duckworth was always around town. And so you just meet these guys, and it just, I fell further in love with them and watched them play basketball. So that was kind of my beginning stage. But when you came out here, like, who were the guys on the team? Was it B. Roy? Was it Dame? Like, who was it that kind of developed that initial connection for you?
So I came like 2017 is when I came. So it was like a couple of years right before the Western Conference run. And I mean, it was Dame and CJ, and it was Al Farouk Aminu, it was Evan Turner and those guys. Awesome group to watch, and then when I think about what they accomplished then, and I think about the team now, I'm like, oh man, we got a lot of talent now. That was a fun team to watch, but I think we're a much more talented team now than we were then.
Yeah, and people ask me about the jaw trade all the time, and I'm like, well, I don't know how it's going to work fit-wise yet, but I do know one thing: the team is more talented today than it was before they made the trade, sending out Chris Murray and Jeremy Grant.
Absolutely, and I love Chris Murray, 2 hands for safety. But I'm pumped. I'm really hopeful.
And I reached out to a couple of guys I know in the Memphis area who work for the team, and I just said, hey, what do you know after the trade went down? I said, what can you tell me about Ja off the court? What are you hearing? And both people told me something very similar, that the crew that he's rolling with now, like the changes he's made, like he appears to be on the right track, and that excites me because I'm a big believer in second chances. Young guy now, he's 26, 2-time All-Star, and I've watched him play like you have. Like, a few guys are as fearless at attacking the rim and have that type of athleticism. Like, I just can't wait to see him on the floor healthy, because when he is, I mean, there aren't many guys in the league that can do some of the things he does.
One of the things, we spoke about is, when I read the breaks of the game, and the reason why I think that's the best sports book of all time is because they go through the lives of these players, right? It goes through the histories and like how they came up. And I think, the way I see Ja is like, he's the type of person where what you put into him is what he's going to put back into you, right? And so that's what sort of seems from the outside, where I'm speculating. But I think if Rip City pours love into him, I think he's going to give a lot of loyalty back and try to put it all out there on the line for the city.
I agree. And the one thing about this town is that if you come in and give an honest effort, the fans are going to embrace you.
Oh, yeah.
And so Ja, we might be catching him at the perfect time, where you have a player that has immense talent, had difficult times in Memphis, they moved on, and now he's getting this second chance, like a second lease on life, and he wants to prove that he's not the guy that many people think he is. It could be a situation to where we may get the very best of what he has to offer over the next couple of years, which is pretty exciting.
And just to round it out, like, I think this is where, I think Dundon did a great deal. This is where buying low really, really is great. Is like, it couldn't be better than this situation.
Well, speaking of buying low, don't you think that because people are like, well, what do you think Dundon's really trying to do? Well, don't you think we could use the example of the Micah Nori contract as an example, right? Where he ended up getting the guy he wanted as coach at the price he wanted, but he did not rush. They waited and waited, and then boom, he had the leverage and was able to dictate terms on the contract for the coach. Why would we think he's going to be any different in the negotiations with the city for this agreement for the renovations? I mean, I'm not saying that it's a different deal because it's a much bigger contract or a much bigger deal he's trying to get done, but his process is going to be the same, right? In terms of how he approaches things?
I totally think so. Yeah, I think he's been pretty consistent that he's going to run the process the way we expect him to, which is, to your point, like, use as much leverage until the very last moment where you don't have it anymore, right?
Yeah.
So whatever the timeline ends up being, whether it's December, whether it's later or whatever, I think he's gonna maximize his leverage until the very last minute.
That's great. So of the shots, we got the Dame .9 against Houston, which was amazing. And we got the shot over Paul George to end this series against Oklahoma City. Like, what is it? The OKC shot your favorite? Like, which one do you remember the most?
I think the OKC, that one still gives me chills when I watched that again. That was pretty sweet. I did on YouTube. It came up it was like the Blazers championship game. There's like the game 7 came up from like the 77, and that came up yesterday, I think, and I was just like sitting there watching it, and I was like, oh man, this is a whole different time. But there was some, I think the OKC shot, like, man, that was insane. That was, that's something that NBA fans everywhere are going to remember forever.
Oh, dude, it was so awesome. And the way he waved goodbye to them. And then Paul George said it was a bad shot, which was amazing. But I'm glad you brought up, let's see here, Bill Walton. Like, that box score.
You know what the craziest thing is from back then is watching Julius Erving play. Like, he was a monster, man. I mean, he, like a lot of those other guys, when you watch him play, they don't look like modern NBA players, but Julius Erving looked like at any time he would have been pretty dominant, man. He looked like a specimen.
Dude, I started watching the NBA at the tail end of his career. And so when you talk to guys who, and I'm friends with Peter Vesey, longtime NBA columnist, and worked on NBC, on the NBA and NBC back in the day. He was on the same team as Dr. J. They play up at Rucker Park in New York, right? Mm-hmm. And he tells me stories about Dr. J. And of course, I wasn't old enough to remember that, but seeing, like, when you go back and watch on YouTube, like Game 6, like, his body, he was strong, incredibly athletic. He had the killer fro, which looked awesome. Mm-hmm. And then you see the way he was able to maneuver the court, like he was a special player.
Yeah, and he palms the ball like it's a wiffle ball,
It's not fair.
It's insane.
Yeah, so this box score, this is one of my favorites. Bill Walton from the championship game, the clincher against Philadelphia. It's badass. 20 points, 23 rebounds, 7 assists, and 8 blocks. And his 8 blocks set a then finals record for a single game, and he won finals MVP. Like, that's a big-time box score. Insane. He did everything.
Insane. Only Enes Kanter can get rebound totals like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you know what's great is, like, when I saw Nurkic go down against Brooklyn with the broken leg, I was convinced the season was over. And then Kanter comes in and was terrific in his role to help the Blazers get to the Western Conference Finals. Like, they couldn't have done it without him.
Dude, the offensive rebounds were insane. What a legend.
And I'll never forget the Evan Turner tweet. I think it was Kanter. I forgot which game, but I think it was in the Oklahoma City series where he got hurt, and he was like in the training room, and he's like, he's like in agony, right? And Turner took a picture and tweeted out "hella drama," and I just thought that was so good, right? But Kanter was huge.
He was big time. Yeah, he was really big time. What a weird cast of characters that made that Western Conference Finals.
It was Seth Curry was on that team.
Rodney
Zach Collins.
We got Rodney
Hood.
Remember him coming clutch in the 4th overtime?
Dude, he was huge. Yeah. Like, they don't win that series without him.
Yeah, it's nuts.
And then what sucked is the following year he got hurt with the Achilles. Like, that whole team, I was so excited going into that season, and then it just all came apart at the seams, which is unfortunate. But you're right, that was, you look
even
back
Myers Leonard hitting 3 after 3 in that closeout game.
Yeah, dude, that was great. Yeah, it was amazing, man. He was on fire. It's funny when you look back at a run like that, you forget some of the details, but they had so many different guys step up. Obviously, Dame was huge, but the play of Enes Kanter was amazing. As you brought up during one of the breaks, C.J. McCollum in that Game 7 was just sensational. But that's what I remember about that Game 7 against Denver was how many different guys, Evan Turner, C.J. McCollum, so many different guys stepped up to contribute to that win. That was a true team win and a comeback because they got down big early in that game and they came back on the road. It was phenomenal.
Yeah, it was awesome.
And then after the game to see Dame, like that happy, like skip, hop back to the locker room when I think it was all sinking in that he was going to the Western Conference Finals. Yeah. Like, then when you see that kind of stuff, you're like, dude, that's why they're playing the game. Like, you can 100%. See the true joy, right?
You're just so happy for them. You're pumped for those guys.
All right, so let's bottom line this. I've never been worried about the team leaving, and I've been telling the same message that, yes, I've been trying to prepare people. Like, it's going to get contentious. Things are going to be said. Feelings are going to be hurt, but they're going to get a deal done. I've never worried about the team leaving. I think they'll get this deal done. Like, how do you see it playing out?
I mean, I think the kind of bottom line, like you're saying, is like, look at the money, follow the money, right? Like follow the incentives, right? The incentive for the NBA is to get this deal done because they need to move on to other things, right? They got the EuroLeague stuff happening, right? They want to focus on most importantly, they got the expansion stuff they need to figure out, right? So they need this thing to be priced correctly so that they can move on to pricing. They need this deal to be done so they can go on to pricing those other two franchises. The incentive of the NBA and all of the other NBA owners is to get this deal done and move on to other things. So again, money-wise, I think we're all good here. The question is, how much can the city ask for, and can they run a process that gives them the highest leverage, and will determine whether TBD on what the city chooses to do in terms of how they choose to run the process and what they choose to competitively bid versus what they don't choose to competitively bid. But I think at the end of the day, right, like Tom's probably going to get the best deal, right? Like he already got most of the money for this renovation, kind of no questions asked from the state, kind of like they mentioned. So, I mean, he's going to get a great deal for himself. The question is, how much can the city kind of claw back from this situation where, this deal was already promised. And so, like you, I think this deal gets done. I think I think none of the deadlines will hopefully get pushed back. But again, I think if Tom doesn't come to the table at all and he just stays with that goose egg, I would not be upset if, the city pushed back, another 6 months or whatever it takes, because, the Blazers can't leave until 2030. We got 4 more seasons here that we're going to be rocking. And so I would say, let's focus on basketball. We can talk basketball. Fans, I would say it doesn't help anyone. It doesn't help the city, right? For you guys to be freaking out about this. So just keep it on basketball and just trust that, the city's going to do the best they can, and ultimately we're going to be in good shape.
I've had a lot of people ask me if it's helpful if they reach out to their local representatives to express their desire for a deal to get done. Do you encourage that type of activity? Do you think that's helpful for some of the counselors and the local reps to hear from their constituents?
Yeah, I mean, we've been, that's the whole point of the Rip City Not Rip Off is telling them we want a deal done, right? We want this renovation to happen. We just got to talk about the terms, right? So there's other groups that are coming. There's a business coalition now that just came out, I think last week, that are talking about telling counselors that they want to get this deal done, and I support that, right? I think we should do that, and other people should say it, but we got to define the terms, right? We can't just be like, we want this deal done no matter what, right? We want this deal done, like here's 100% of the money, forget it. I think if you're going to say it, you got to also tell them under what terms you support this deal, and I think again we can just use Tom Dundon's own words, right? He said he wants to have a market deal. I also want a market deal. If we can make that happen, then let's get it.
What's the next big deadline? Is it August 17th?
So August 12th is when
August 12th.
It's kind of a self-imposed deadline by the city council. So they said that they're going to, make a vote on the initial term sheet. But I think end of December is, again, another kind of self-imposed deadline around bonding authority and stuff like that, where they can, that's when they would make the final determination, but they can push that back too. I mean, there's nothing in the Senate bill that says it needs to happen by December. If they need to push it back, they can always get that funded again in the next session or any following session after that.
Okay, because that's an important note too. So you can push back this August 12th deadline for the council vote can be pushed back, and also the funding. I think a deal needs to be reached by the end of the year for that money, that 365 to still be available, but they can
extend that. So the way the bill was written, and if someone sees something that I don't, please correct me, but the way the bill was written was that they can just continue to extend that into the future, and they've authorized up to that amount of funding, but they can extend it, basically up until the lease ends. So, and there's nothing in the lease, in the terms that I've seen that the city just put out that has any deadline in it. So there's no deadline in the city term sheet. There's no deadline in the bill. The question, I think everyone wants to get it done, right? The NBA wants to get it done. Certainly the legislators want it to be over, but that doesn't mean we should give up our leverage just because of these kind of I won't say fake deadlines, but not written in stone deadlines.
Okay, that's great. I just want to go over a couple of the key points from the term sheet just so you can maybe just give some detail on that for everyone.
Yeah.
This is what the team or the city sent over to the team. a non-relocation commitment, a binding 20-year agreement requiring the Trailblazers to play all home games at Moda Center.
So 20 years, I think some counselors said, why not 30 years? Why not 35 years? And I think
And I'm okay with that. Pushing that out, 20 is at the bare minimum,
20
in my
is
opinion.
Totally bare minimum. The reason it's 20 is because of the bond financing for the state. So the financing plan that the state put together, they said basically they're going to use all the arena income to basically pay off all those bonds over the course of 20 years, and that's the math that they did. That's how they came up with that 20-year number. Certainly they could revisit that math, right? And certainly they could figure out other ways to push it further along.
Isn't a normal lease agreement like 30 years?
I think the majority of them are 25 to 30 years.
Yeah.
I think 20 would be unprecedentedly low.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I would be okay with. Of course, the good thing is if you get 20, that pretty much guarantees the Blazers being here for an extended period of time, which is very good.
That's right.
Next up, labor harmony agreements, requirements for labor peace agreements to support a stable workforce. What does that mean?
So as far as I understand, the labor piece is basically saying like you can't just like mass fire everybody and bring in a whole bunch of like cheaper labor, right?
Yeah.
You got to have certain standards for the arena workers. So people also have to remember there's two types of arena workers. There's full-time workers who are there all the time, right? They run the concerts and all the other things that are happening.
Mhm.
That's a small minority of the total workers. Then there's all the temporary workers, right? And so it's going to be difficult to, I know some people are like, well, we'd love to make all those temporary workers full-time workers. Financially, that's probably not possible. There's thousands of workers. That would be a huge change in the way the revenue works. So I don't think that that's feasible. Although we all want it, I don't think that's a reasonable ask. It would be difficult for me to understand how that would work. But the full-time employees that work there and do all the concerts and everything else, certainly we can protect their jobs and make sure that they're getting paid fairly and hopefully the criticisms about Tom being cheap I think are justified. So I think people are worried about making sure that those jobs do not disappear, and I think that's what it is.
All right, financial protections, clear caps on public funding, limits on eligible expenses, and safeguards for the city, state, and county against cost overruns.
So cost overruns is basically saying like, don't come back to us for more money later. That's basically what they're saying. It's like, this is it. This is what you're getting for the next 20 years. Everything else is on you.
Which is fair.
I think that's fair. Yeah, I think that's totally fair, especially given the percentages of what the public is putting in right now versus what he's putting in. I think that's super fair. And so, the cost overruns and then the financial protections, those are kind of just like, specific things just to make sure that, he can't kind of like maneuver out of the deal that we defined.
Okay. A $3 million annual payment for property tax offset payment from Rip City Management escalating over time with proceeds shared among the city, county, and Portland Public Schools.
So this is property tax. So when this, before, when the city was owned by Paul Allen, right? It's a private business, private arena, so they had to pay property tax.
Yeah.
Just like every other commercial building. Because it's now belongs to the city doesn't pay itself property tax, but there's something called payment in lieu of taxes. I don't actually know if these property taxes fall into that category, but the idea is basically it's property. Think about it as like property taxes that you would pay, and that's tied to the value of the renovation, right? So let's say the arena is worth some amount of money now. I don't know what they would value it at, but presumably if we put $600 million into it, it's worth $600 million more, right?
Yeah.
Or something like that. So then we would have to do whatever calculation Multnomah County has for the property tax assessment, and then we basically were saying, look, we're just gonna get property taxes on this, and that's really for the county, because the county is a party in this too, right? There's the state, there's the city, and the county. The county is not part of this joint authority, and they're getting really nothing back. So I think the county is like, look, we need some revenue stream coming back to us to make us whole on their nearly $100 million investment.
All right, and community benefit commitments, requirements for community event access, local hiring, sustainability standards, and partnerships with Albina-based organizations.
Yeah, so the community benefits, obviously there was a mention of having events there. So I think those are things like graduations and other things like that. I don't know what events currently happen at the Moda Center, but it's just like, hey, give us a couple free events that we can run. Presumably that's what that means. The Albina stuff is very interesting because obviously, as we know, 1803 Fund, Albina Vision Trust, and they have the Albina Rose Alliance, which is the Blazers and Albina Vision Trust. They want to make that area great. I don't know what that actually looks like. Like I'm excited to see. I'm hopeful that we'll be able to see like actual numbers around what that looks like instead of just kind of vibes. But I think it'll be important to actually see what that looks like once there's numbers put to that.
All right, thanks for breaking that down. So we'll come back and then we'll say goodbye to Edan. 503-248-0620. You got the Ricom. Hi, man. It's great. But a big thanks to Edan Krolowitz for joining me in studio. I really appreciate your time, man. It's great to get a But a big thanks to Edan Krolowitz for joining me in studio. I really appreciate your time, man. It's great to get a chance to know you, and I appreciate the work that you're doing to help bring some, just honest focus and reporting on this negotiation deal. It's pretty awesome because there's a lot of, chaos out there right now with the negotiations because people have fear, and when there's fear, people are gonna, get really concerned. But it's nice to know that this is a negotiation. It's going to play out its process, but in the end, we both think it's going to get done.
Yep. I think that's exactly how it's going to go down.
That's pretty awesome, man. I'm glad that you were able to make it to Rip City and become a big fan. Now you're just one of us.
Just one of you.
Dude, so have you spent time down in Silicon Valley? Have you lived down in the Bay?
I used to work down there in Palo Alto, San Francisco a little bit, Seattle, and then obviously New York. But lived in Portland for about 5 years before. Excited, happy to be back. No better place than Portland, honestly.
When I was living down in the Bay Area, I would say Palo Alto was like one of my favorite places to drive to. Like, what a beautiful area that is.
Yeah, gorgeous.
And the other thing that blew me away about the Bay Area was the microclimates. Like where I lived in Emeryville was cooler in the evenings. If I wanted warmer temperatures, I could drive up to Walnut Creek or drive down to San Jose or to Palo Alto, and it was like 10 to 15 degrees warmer with sunshine.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and the fog coming in and out. Everyone has stories about that.
Gosh, so amazing. So which part of Seattle did you live in when you were up there?
I lived all over the place. I lived in Belltown, Capitol Hill, Fremont.
Belltown's
lived
nice
in
too.
Green Lake. Yeah, Green Lake I think was my favorite spot. Just walking around that lake.
Dude, Green Lake
really
is,
fun.
I've gone running up there in that area. But that's a great place for your walks or whatever.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It's so much fun. Used to go, had my first kid there. And yeah.
What's your son's name?
I have two sons. One is Elon and Oren.
Elon and Oren.
Yeah.
What are the ages? 9
and 9 and 2.5.
Oh, dude.
Yeah.
That's awesome,
2 boys.
man.
Yeah, it's nice.
Well, congratulations. Hey, you're welcome on the show anytime, man. I appreciate you.
Thanks so much, Chad. Appreciate
All right.
you.